Well, hello everybody. It's a blustery January day. The winds are high, it's raining. It's not really fit to go for a walk at the moment. So I thought this morning I would do some cooking. Today I'm going to show you how to make an old-fashioned moist apple cake. It's really simple. You're using ratios of items that you would have used probably more in the 1940s and 1950s. So instead of using, say, 2 to 5 grams of flour, butter, and sugar, you're using 2 to 5 grams of flour and 115 grams each of butter or margarine and sugar, and you're using the rubbing in method. It's super easy to make, and within 40-50 minutes or so you've got a delicious cake that you can serve either as a cold dessert or just with a cup of tea in the afternoon. So let's get started. If you're baking this the conventional way, then you need to set your oven to 190 Celsius, 375 Fahrenheit, gas mark 5. I'm actually going to bake this on the conventional oven setting of my combi oven. So I don't need to put the oven on right now because it only takes a few minutes to heat up to temperature. I'm doing this because it's a cheaper method of cooking with electricity than putting the oven on. Back in the 1940s and 1950s, you would have really only done baking if you'd been baking, say, a casserole or some other savoury in the oven. You would do that in order to save fuel. Dan and I will be having a slice of this for our supper this evening. Always remember to keep your butter papers for greasing. This one's a bit tatty. I've got nearly all the butter off here now. So there we go. And then we're just lining it with a circle of greaseproof baking paper. Make sure you press it right into the corners. Like so. Next, I've weighed out 225 grams of flour. Now, this is all-purpose French flour. Ideally, you would be using self-raising flour. I'm going to add a little over 2 teaspoons of baking powder. You want 1 teaspoon per 100 grams. So I'm going to add about 2 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder. Also a pinch of salt, and you can either use a pinch of cloves ground, or you can use mixed spice ground, and you add a pinch of ground cloves, or you can add a pinch of ground mixed spice, but I'm going to use a good pinch of ground cinnamon. Then the flour mixture gets sieved into a large bowl. I've cut up the butter. I'm adding that to the bowl, and you want to rub the butter in until it resembles fine breadcrumbs. If you don't like the feel of butter through your fingers, you can use a fork to break it up and then mix the last bits in to make sure they resemble fine breadcrumbs. Make sure you get some air into it. You want this cake nice and airy. We're just about there, folks. So now it's time to add the eggs and the sugar. Now it's time to add the sugar and the apples. I've stirred through 115 grams of caster sugar. If you prefer, you can use light brown soft sugar. I have 2 good-sized Bramleys here. I've given them a wash. I'm going to peel these and slice them finely. If you prefer to chop them instead of slicing them, then that's fine too. If you do slice them, they need to be as fine as possible. You want to make sure that your apples are quite finely sliced. This ensures that they break down properly in that batter and help to keep the cake moist. I'm putting them in a container as I go along. I'm using Bramleys. You could also use Granny Smiths. You need to use some kind of cooking apple or all-purpose apple for this recipe to work at its best. However, if all you have is dessert apples, I would advise maybe chopping them finely instead, and then they should break down quite well. If 1 or 2 pieces are not as thin as you would like, don't worry too much about it. It's better to leave them slightly thicker than desired and avoid slicing a finger, which would be not only painful but potentially, in some people at least, a catastrophe. Go as slow or as fast as you feel comfortable. The next thing we do is add the sliced apples. So in they go. And then just mix them in with clean hands all the way through until they're well incorporated into all that lovely sweetened floury mixture. The next thing to do is to crack a couple of eggs into a cup. I'm giving those a whiz. I'm going to add those to the mixture. Give them a stir through, and then we're adding enough milk, just enough to make a stiff dough. So those are the 2 eggs. They're fairly large eggs. I would say probably medium to large. You want to add the milk in stages because you don't want to add too much. So I'm just going to grab the milk and I'll pour it actually into this cup to get out any remaining egg residue. I'm using raw milk. Now, if you're vegan, you can still make this cake, but instead of using eggs, use aquafaba and any good vegan spread instead of the butter. And you need to make sure that the aquafaba is well whizzed before you add it. I will put on the screen the equivalent of aquafaba to whole shell eggs. And then instead of using normal milk, you can use something like almond milk or oat milk, whatever floats your boat, soy even, or coconut milk. I'll add that much to start. There's probably 3 or 4 tablespoons there. We'll see how that comes together. We're almost there. I think another tablespoon or 2 should just about do it. There we go. That's just about perfect. And I'll now put that in the tin. In it goes. And spread it evenly in that tin. It smells really appley and delicious. This is going to be a nice cake. I've got a bit of custard sugar left. This is all that was left in the packet. And I'm using this instead of granulated sugar. If you wanted to use demerara sugar instead, you could do that. It's entirely up to you. So there we go. I'm now going to preheat my combi oven to 190 Celsius, which will take a few minutes, and then I'll pop the cake in the oven and I will set it initially for 33 minutes. It takes between 30 and 40 minutes. And if a skewer comes out clean, then it'll be ready. If not, it'll probably only take a few more minutes. Let's look at this cake. It's had 38 minutes. Oh wow, you see that comes out clean. That's ready. It wasn't quite ready after 35 minutes. This cake may take up to 40 minutes in fact. I'm going to move it onto this wire rack and in a few minutes I will turn it out and allow it to cool completely. This is one of those spring clip cakes. So I'm going to release the spring. I'm just going to tip it over. There we go. Doesn't that look lovely? And I'll let that cool. The cake is cold now, so it's time to get it on the plate. Now, normally you would put it in a cake tin until you're ready to cut into it. However, we're having some for our dessert tonight, so I'm actually going to put it on this plate for now and then cover it with a cake dough. I've inverted the glass plate. And there we are. You can use a cake lifter. I do have one, but it's under quite a few pans and I really can't be bothered. It's just as easy to invert a plate.
Very nice. Apple cake. Yumbo.
It's not sweet, is it?
No, it's just right. Very slightly sweet, but not overly sweet. The apple's given it the sweetness.
It's moist, isn't it?
Very moist. Very nice.
You wouldn't think that there was only 115 grams of butter and 115 grams of sugar, would you?
No.
Well, there is, that's all.
It's very nice.
So there we are. That seems to be a successful cake. I hope you enjoyed this recipe and I look forward to seeing you soon for the next one. Bye for now.